This is the Nutrition News Network. I'm Brian Butt, and good Sunday to you. Today is Sunday, December 2nd, 2019. I just want to kind of touch base with everybody out there. Hope everybody had a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. So we're going to talk about a couple things today on the podcast today. So the network news special here, we're talking about here for December 2nd. Today is Sunday, of course. And some things that we're going to be talking about are vitamin C and immune health. Also vitamin D and SAD, which is considered it's actually called seasonal affective disorder. And then the final one is a study, a Butyrate study. Is it a double-edged sword? I'll kind of go into that a little bit. So basically the holiday weekend, a lot of stuff was eaten, kind of went a little bit high on the carbs, kind of went over some things, kind of ate a little too much. If you're out there, it's okay. But a couple things we kind of want to go over. Vitamin C for immune health. Now, vitamin C is very important for immune health. Now, there's some studies out there that are flawed that are saying vitamin C is not a big deal. That is a very, very misstatement. Now, there's varying forms of vitamin C. Now, vitamin C can also be done in ways that can hurt or affect you. Like if you're taking a genetically modified GMO corn, like genetically modified organism, corn-based vitamin C with GMO corn could be detrimental to your health. So what you want to look for is natural vitamin C through fruits and vegetables. But also, I would recommend ascorbic acid. If you're going to take more than 3 grams a day, what I would recommend is probably taking the buffered form, which is, of course, calcium ascorbate, or there's also magnesium ascorbate. Calcium ascorbate sometimes raises blood pressure a little too much if you have high blood pressure. So magnesium ascorbate would actually be a better option for you. But vitamin C for immune health is very important. Vitamin C is good for immune health. It's good for a lot of different types of things in your body, for the collagen and the breaking down, of course, of fats and carbohydrates and proteins, but also too it's needed for, most importantly, the adrenal health of your adrenal glands. So every time there's stress, humans have a genetic defect from evolution that we cannot generate our own vitamin C. So what happens with that is, of course, without the vitamin C, we have to have it from our diet, or you get what is called scurvy. I mean, that's pretty baseline, but a lot of the foods now have it. A lot of drinks have it now. They have it in copious amounts, but the dietary guidelines I think are 60 milligrams for 100%, and that's not really a lot. I would say during the wintertime, probably a dose that would be beneficial would be more like a dose of 3 grams. So divided over 3 times, 1,000 milligrams a dose. Ascorbic acid could be used as that. I would recommend the buffered form of vitamin C for anything above 3. Now, if you're sick or you're stressed out, I can tell you firsthand, you can do what is called a BTT. It's a bowel tolerance test. Now, a lot of people get freaked out by that, and they think it's a bad thing. It's actually not. A BTT is actually to test your tolerance for your bowel, meaning that you take a vitamin C every 30 minutes, like a gram every 30 minutes, and then until you get basically diarrhea, basically that's when you stop. So if you take 2 grams, you get diarrhea. Well, you cut it to 75% of that, and that's basically 1,500 milligrams out of 2,000. So that 1,500 is your baseline dose. Now, if you're under a lot of stress, or you're a smoker or a drinker, it could be as high as 10, it could be as high as 15 grams in divided doses. It just depends. I mean, it could be that you need 20 grams a day if you're going through a high stress event. But then you don't want to be sitting there on the toilet, obviously. So that's very important to figure that out. So vitamin C is important for immune health. It's also helpful for, of course, lung function. So that's, a lot of people get these what are called upper respiratory infections in the wintertime. So this is very important to realize for that, because with the upper respiratory infections, Could tend to be going with the lungs. Obviously, there's vitamin C, but any kind of bioflavonoids to add with the vitamin C, like rutin or even quercetin, which is kind of like a good antihistamine. Those are really good for the wintertime. So vitamin C for immune health, very important. Okay, so on to the next subject here. We're going to be talking about vitamin D and SAD for winter. SAD stands for seasonal affective disorder. So a lot of people, some people get towards this usually towards December, November, especially here in the Northeast. We're in Cleveland, Ohio, but especially in this area, it looks like there's a lot of issues with people just feeling low and feeling down. Now, obviously, if you're eating a bunch of junk and you're not active, you're going to feel like junk if it's the summertime, so it's not going to really matter. But if you're sitting there and you're doing what you can and you still can't get where you need to go, then I would recommend vitamin D as an option. Now, obviously, you want to get your blood tests. I think it's the vitamin D OH25 test, blood test. Now, the nanograms per deciliter, if it's below 30, you're in the low range. It used to be 20, but now they're recognizing that. Obviously, if you're more in the northern climate, you want to supplement it probably based on your body weight. For me, I take 10,000 international units a day in the winter, just because I'm a little bit heavier. I'm in the 275 pound, 280 pound range. So I would recommend something like that. But if you're like, say, 150 pounds, you probably need like maybe 2,000 to 3,000 international units a day, not as much. Because vitamin C is fat soluble, so the more fat you have, the more of it you need. So if you're obese, you're going to need more. If you're skinny, you don't need as much, but you still need it. Now, seasonal affective disorder, a lot of people wonder how that is. Of course, obviously, if diet is good and you're still having those mundane blues and you're still not feeling well, my recommendation on that is to get your blood levels checked by a doctor. And you have the low blood levels, get on a supplement of vitamin D. Vitamin D is a hormone. It is the, of course, most important hormone gene signaling nutrient in the body. Vitamin D is needed in, of course, copious more quantities, especially above the 40, above the north, where the sun doesn't really affect you because you can get vitamin D from the sun. So if you're African American or darker pigmentation, you actually need more of it for the melanin to produce through photosynthesis from the vitamin D. So if you're, Caucasian, if you're me and you take 10,000, that's great. If you're African American, you might need 15 to 20,000 international units because you have darker pigmentation. It's, basically just science that shows that. So, it really frustrates me that the public service, the health industry, they don't tell African Americans to take more vitamin D because it would really save a lot of people that have diabetes, people that have problems with that, because vitamin D deficiency is linked to type 2 diabetes. Obviously, diet and exercise are a key quotient of that, but I digress. So vitamin D and SAD, when you get your levels checked, is very important. So what we're doing is we're going to talk about why that's important, because you want to start probably like August or September if you're in the Northeast. You don't want to start too late if you're in, like, say, in the middle of the winter. It'll work, but not as effectively. So you want to start upping your dose in the probably the end of summer. In the summer, you don't really need too much, because if you're going outside for an hour a day without sunscreen, you're pretty much getting enough that you need. But in the northern hemisphere, you probably need a little bit more. Unless you live like in Florida, that's different. So then we're going to talk about today the Butyrate study. It's Advances in Nutrition, Volume 9, Issue 1, that came out in January of 2018. Now, butyrate is very interesting because butyrate is butyric acid. It's in a lot of stuff. So coconut oil has it. Butter, ghee, but you can also take a soluble fiber supplement that can actually ferment this fiber and create butyric acid. Butyric acid, they're saying that it's good for, of course, The HADAP cells and basically inhibiting cancer, but it also isn't really that great for obesity. Well, the thing is, I've noticed that people that actually take fiber with the butyrate, the butyric acid can actually form if you have friendly bacteria. So if you take a good dose of a probiotic that has a large strain and the right bifido colony forming units, and you take the soluble fiber, that can actually increase GABA levels. So, basically, if you're looking to get rid of anxiety, a good decent probiotic and some soluble fiber will ferment that butyric acid and get you in a better spot. Now, obviously, I can't be for sure, but test it yourself. You'll be pleasantly surprised. And notice when people go off of it, when I've seen it, that they actually get worse. They have a tough time losing weight. So they're saying, well, it's a double-edged sword, and it could inhibit cancer, but also, too, it doesn't get rid of obesity. There's no drug that's going to get rid of obesity. I mean, you can take a Xenical type supplement that basically just inhibits fat and just makes you poop it out. It doesn't cover the underlying issues. And people that get stomach staples, that's very dangerous because, number one, you're inhibiting the hormone ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone. Now, if you're a man and you're looking to conceive a child and you're in your 20s or 30s and you do that, I'm not saying it makes you infertile, but you need that growth hormone. It's essential for testosterone and drive. Without that, there's no conception. So a lot of guys that get their stomach stapled, they're going to be in a lot of troubles when they get older in life and they do want to conceive a child. They have that issue. So I would say that stomach stapling is probably not the best idea unless it's absolutely necessary. Because a lot of people want this quick fix mentality. Obesity basically is highly inflammatory. Butyric acid is actually helpful by taking the soluble fiber, working your way up slowly so you don't get a bunch of belching and a bunch of gas. But it's very effective at lowering your hunger levels because you do need those. You don't want to take anything out of check. Every part of your body has a purpose. So that's why, if you have a healthy gallbladder, you don't have to get rid of it. And then the thing is, I got my gallbladder removed in 2008. And just to tell you a little bit about that right quick, I have to eat the same time every day or I get congestion in the liver or I get congestion in the lymph system because the bile's not flowing out like it used to when you had the gallbladder. But people say it's a useless organ, just like the spleen. Everything is a useful organ. Everything God intended it to be is there for a reason. So I'm Brian Budd, and this is, of course, Nutrition News Network. Hope you guys have a great week, and our next video will be sometime this week. Great day, and I will see you soon.
These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This show or products is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Nutrition News Network. All rights reserved. Copyright 2019.